A Democrat wins the presidency in 2028. The U.S. joins the International Criminal Court. The International Criminal Court arrests Kristi Noem, Pete Hegseth, Greg Abbott, and others with the blessing of the United States government. The ICC also arrests Israeli officials, and the UN votes to call Gaza a genocide. Let's look into all that. Welcome to Scrying Out Loud. My name is Trevor. First up, a huge thank you to everybody who's subscribed to the channel, to everybody who likes, watches, comments on the videos. I try to get all your comments. Usually I'm about a day after the video has been posted that I get to the comments. If you've donated money to the channel through the Super Thanks, Buy Me a Coffee, Venmo, huge thank you. It's greatly appreciated. And those of you that are promoting the channel on your own social media platforms, a big thank you. It has not gone unnoticed. I have been quite busy lately, and yesterday I recorded a video, and that's all I did. I recorded the video, and then I took the day to be uh, reflective and kind of alone, and I mean with family, but just enjoying kind of the day, not overwhelming amounts of information. I did see that there was an incident where the senator from California, Alex Padilla, was kind of thrown to the ground and handcuffed while trying to ask Kristi Noem a question. This got me thinking this morning while I'm scrying. I'm recording this on, I guess it's Friday already, about 6:30 in the morning on the East Coast. I've been up for about 3 hours. That's generally my norm, is to get about 3:30, somewhere around that. And to meditate and to scry, and then I generally take a nap after I record a video. That's kind of just the way things work. For me, and it's worked that way for many years. So um, my intuition's always a little bit stronger in June. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but it is. So when I was scrying this morning, it was very clear that I got very clear images of Kristi Noem, Pete Hegseth, and Greg Abbott, who's the current uh, governor of Texas, and I think also Ken Paxton, who's the lieutenant governor of Texas, um, being taken away and them being taken to The Hague and being put on trial by the International Criminal Court. And Um, this all has to do with human trafficking charges based on what the current administration in the United States is calling deportations, but in reality, it's kidnapping and trafficking. This reading is for entertainment purposes only. I could be right, I could be wrong. And I also saw, very clearly a huge celebration at the UN when the UN voted to call what has been going on in Gaza a genocide. And this was obviously, the US didn't object to this because the US has veto power, and other nations decided not to object to it that have veto power as well. Now, this could be because some of those nations have been stripped of their veto powers. I don't think that's the case with the US. And then I saw Israeli officials. Netanyahu wasn't there, but I think that's because Netanyahu leaves the planet. But he could be there. I just didn't see him. Um, and they were being charged with basically perpetuating a genocide. So the only way that this seems to be likely, I didn't get images of this, but it must be that the Democrats win the presidency in 2028 and they decide to join the International Criminal Court. So we'll throw cards on that. I didn't see images of that, but it's kind of logically has to be the deduction, right? If you watched any of the hearings that happened on, I guess it was Thursday, uh, the Republicans clearly are never going to stand up for what is right until they are forced to do so. And I think that's why a Democrat controlled Senate, House, and White House in 2028 leads to Democrats saying, you know what, we have to clean house. And the only way we can clean house is the way, uh, essentially the houses were cleaned after World War II. We got to turn this over to the International Criminal Court, let them take care of it, and get it out of get it out of the way and let people know that in the future there will be consequences for this type of behavior. So let's throw some cards on that. It was a very positive energy. It sounds, you know, kind of doom and gloom, I guess, as I was kind of saying it, but it's a very positive um, feeling that the world will kind of course correct, justice will come out, the balances will balance, or the scales will balance, and the country will decide that, it's not above international criminal law anymore, that we're going to uphold those norms. And it's always Republicans that are breaking them for the most part. There's probably some questions about the use of drones, but um, that Democrats did. But so let's just start here. Do the Democrats win the presidency in 2028? I don't know. I can't tell you who's president. I've always hoped the Democrats do. I think it's going to be a slog of a primary, and these things are going to get debated in the primary, and this is good. Joining the International Criminal Court fully and allowing them the right to arrest government officials who have committed crimes that violate the International Criminal Court, being part of the debate is good because I think that's part of what helps to moderate uh, President the Republican president, which will be Vance after the felon leaves, because he'll start to realize that he's not going to win. He'll be the one. I'm fairly confident he'll be the Republican nominee in 2028 because he'll be the sitting president. Um, and even if I guess it doesn't really matter whether he runs or not, but he'll start to realize that, hey, if Democrats win and follow through with this, I could also be on the chopping block, so to speak. So I think it would be good for Democrats to talk about immigration in this way and not, they have to be careful. Like I've said in the past, uh, you know, they can't take absolute positions of defunding ICE or defunding the police, or that's just not going to fly with the American public. That's on the margins, and the margins is where every election's decided. So, um, all right. So do the Democrats win in 2028? Do we get a Democratic president sworn in on January of 2029? I see the Six of Wands in the Scrying Bowl, which is about victory. We get the Queen of Cups. The energy around the 2028 election will be one of more around empathy. It'll also be around some, needs to improve the economy, the tax code, all these things that the Republicans are just going to give the Democrats to run on because they're going to essentially prove everything that Vice President Harris said in the 2024 election that they would do correct. The voters are going to walk away from the party in power, which would be the Republicans, with the Eight of Cups. And we get the Sun card in the upper right. This is good because I think this means people are going to vote with clarity and with a vision of what they want the world to be. We get the Ten of Pentacles. Um, the social inheritance from this administration is going to be top of mind. What's it saying about the country? How's the world viewing the United States? These are going to be big issues, in which they're normally kind of not. So we have the Page of Swords at the center of the reading. This is the Saboteur. This is like the residual, it feels like it's the residual energy of the felon, although he's gone. It's like the country realizes we were duped by the felon, that he wasn't really doing anything because it was in the US's interest. He was doing things because it was in his own interest, and it was because it was in the interest of people who controlled him via blackmail, um, things along those lines, for entertainment purposes only. But um, there'll be this giant realization. And, the Democrats not going to win with 60% of the vote or anything crazy like that. That'll not happen anytime soon, but they could win with 55% of the vote. Something along those lines would be a huge victory. It'll be an overwhelming victory because people want guardrails in place. People are very nervous about what happens if Republicans stay in power. This is already starting to happen, and we'll see this in 2026. I think the Democrats will win back the House. The Senate's a bigger task. We'll look at that when we get some nominees and we know who's actually running against whom. And people feel trapped. People feel like their lives got smaller under this administration. People don't feel better off. People feel worse off. And they feel almost a sense of guilt for what this administration has done to the country, to the world. And uh, I think when the felon dies, which I think happens this year, it feels that way. Um, I saw the autumn type decorations associated with this event. Somebody pointed out, I think in the comments, that they were already seeing these kind of decorations popping up in stores. I still feel like it's a ways away, but sometimes people just die. I mean, I think we all know that story where, people aren't necessarily gravely ill or anything. Once they reach a certain age, things can happen rather quickly. Okay. We had unlikely partnerships with the lovers card. So I think this is sane-minded Republicans, independents, and Democrats all coming together to vote to send the Republicans out of power and to vote against greed with the Nine of Cups, the greedy merchant. So the election will all be about empathy and improving the US standing in the world, realizing that the current administration was a saboteur with the Page of Swords, that they didn't have any of our best interests at mind, that they were only working for greed and for self-preservation. By the time the election comes around, people are going to feel trapped and embarrassed by what has what has happened, the information that comes out about the felon, and particularly who's represented here by the Page of Swords, and everything will be known. This will cause people to look at this, what they had voted for in the past, if they voted for him, um, and having to live with that kind of inheritance around that makes them feel like they have to walk away with the Eight of Cups. Guardrails need to be better placed with the Nine of Wands, which is an important card. It's going to pop up a lot along with Temperance. And this forms this unlikely partnership with the Lovers card. Uh, so that the Democrat doesn't just win. The Democrat wins fairly big, not with 60% of the vote. That's never going to happen. It's just not. Um, People are ready to lay the burdens down. People are ready for the cycle to be over. And I think this is very telling. We get the death card. What's right after the death? The death of who? The death of the felon, right? That's going to be the biggest influence on this election is what the felon did. It doesn't matter in some sense. Like the cards are already written that the Democrats will win. Like the Republicans could try to like change their codes, but people aren't going to believe them. So, a leopard can't change its spots, right? So, okay. So how does a Democratic president clean up the mess? How does the Democratic president reestablish the US as being a reasonable partner in the world? So, I think this is why I was getting images of officials being, basically on trial in the international criminal court, is because this seems like the most likely thing to happen. We get the star card popping out, protections, and it's a yes card too. So it seems like the most likely way to do that is to let the international community hold the United States accountable. So will will the US join fully? Will they fully join the International Criminal Court after the Democrats take over? I feel like the Democrats control all three branches. Well, not the judiciary, I mean the House, the Senate, and the White House. Is this what happens? Does the Democratic administration say, yeah, the US needs to be held accountable by international standards so that the US can be seen as part of the global community in a way that um, it hasn't been. I mean, there's so many countries that have travel advisories to the US right now. It's rather embarrassing. Yeah, we get victory. The Six of Wands. I've seen this in the water earlier. Um, the world wins, right? Karma has its way. It just does. You know, the US did horrible things under the second President Bush and the other presidents too. And then President Obama said, no, we're not going to look backward. And, although a lot of people wanted people in that administration charged for the things that they did. So this idea of not looking backwards is not going to fly anymore. The people are going to demand it. The people are going to demand that people be held accountable for violating international norms. This is going to put Republicans in a very defensive posture. It's probably going to divide the country as well. But, you know, being divided 55-45 is nothing new. It's death is the reason why they're going to do it. People's livelihoods and possibly even some preventable deaths occur. Uh, we don't know how dark it gets. I always have felt like things start to improve after the felon leaves, but we don't know what they've been hiding. We don't know. We don't know how much support the felons administration has been given to Israel, for example, as they continue to bomb Gaza, which seems to be pretty defenseless at this point, and now they bombed Iran. We don't know the full story yet. we don't know where all of these people that are being kidnapped and taken out of the country are actually ending up. And that's going to be the story that outrages everybody. It's about giving and receiving things of value. The US agrees to get into the International Criminal Court in hopes that it receives, in turn, a better relationship with other countries as it commits to live under the same set of international norms that the countries that are in the ICC have committed to. And it's a show of strength. It's a show to say that we can look at our past demons, fight them, and we'll survive. And while it's going to make a lot of people upset, this isn't strange. I mean, you can go back and you can look at stories from the late 40s and 50s. I had a great friend who was a historian. Well, she's still a historian, and she wrote a lot of papers about, she'd collected journals from the widows of World War II, but on the Nazi side. And they they were obviously mad as their husbands and stuff were held trial or faced trial, but that's what needed to be done, right? It's going to be a similar sort of feel. It won't be quite as extreme as that. I don't think we're not going to see anything as extreme as what happened then, but it's going to be bad. Like what I feel like most of it's already taken place, but it's bad. And this is an unlikely partnership with the Lovers card. Again, it's like this is a way for the United States to say, you know what, we're part of the global community. We're neither better than or less than. I think we'll stop seeing the phrase the US is the greatest country. Um, those type of things will start to kind of fade into the background. There'll be people that still say it. There'll be people that believe it. But, it's going to be harder to say that once we find out that, the United States is responsible for a bunch of kidnappings. This is going to be harder to say those things. So I think that's another reason why it's important. It's going to fundamentally change the United States for the better. It's going to tear down the structure of we are better than, and the arrogant Americans. Um, it's going to kind of start to dissolve that attitude, and people are going to be more comfortable with the fact that we are just a country amongst a global community. And while the United States' economy and wealth might still be bigger than a lot of countries, it's not going to be what defines things because the value system starts to shift. We've talked about this in the past. So um, it'll be exposed. The human trafficking is going to get exposed, the chariot card. And by human trafficking, I'm not talking about anything more than what is going on with taking people out of the country without due process. That's all I'm talking about. Is there more? Yes, but that will be enough. And the US wants to be seen as the that it can face up to this prosecutorial power, that it can be held accountable, that it doesn't need to be scared of this as long as it's following the international norms. So I think the answer is yes. I think it's a victory for the world when the US joins the International Criminal Court. It's a show of strength. It's a show that the US isn't scared of being prosecuted for its crimes. And it fundamentally breaks down the structure of this idea that the US is somehow better than, which is only a feeling inside the US. It's certainly not a feeling outside the US. And it's a show of strength. And it's in part because of the harm that was caused by the felon, his administration, and um, its members. It'll put Republicans in a very defensive posture. The US will hope to gain back some of its reputation in the world by doing so, take ownership over the fact that we had an administration that kidnapped and forcefully removed people without due process, not even knowing whether they were here legally or illegally, or whether they had a place to go, you know. And I think this causes some, surprising new consequences and unlikely partnerships. I think, this really changes the younger generation and brings them along with a different standard. People are going to be confined. The Eight of Swords. It's going to happen swiftly. It's going to be a little bit of a surprise with the Page of Cups, but ultimately it's about the next generation and like a reset, the Fool. It's like a big giant reset for not only the United States, but for the world, that we don't stand for people that abuse power, that we can not just go after people like the felon, but people like Putin, people like Viktor Orban, uh, like Netanyahu as well. So, yes, I think the US does join the International Criminal Court. This will be against the objections of the Republicans, of course, because they will know the consequences. So, will there be officials in the US that are prosecuted? And when I saw these images, it's like the administration in 2029 just willingly hands over the people that have been indicted for crimes. They don't stand in the way. It's like, nope, we're part of the International Criminal Court now. They say, you've been indicted. Here you go. Here they are. Okay, so the ones that I could clearly see were Kristi Noem, Hegseth, Greg Abbott, and it felt like I'm getting the Texas Attorney General's image and the Texas Lieutenant Governor's image mixed up, I think. But yeah. Um, could be both of them, though. I don't think the list is all inclusive. So just the ICC arrest uh, government officials, state and federal, in the future. Yeah, because it's a way to move forward, right? There's no really way to move forward if we let these people stand and let them have the potential to get into power again. No country is going to trust the United States if they think the president after the next Democratic president is going to be Kristi Noem or Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, I don't think that would ever happen, but it's a the international community is not going to trust the United States even after they elect a Democratic president. That's not going to be enough. They need to know that the crazies won't be in charge again. And so this is a way of moving forward by letting these people be prosecuted. And it's also about justice. The scales need to balance. People need to learn that they're not allowed to blatantly disregard human life because it's a way to appease a certain group. And it's like a brand new beginning. It's like the things that we value are become different. It's not so much about the acquisition of wealth as it is about living a just and moral life. However, moral is defined. It's certainly not the televangelist version of moral, or the Southern Baptist version of moral, or at least the leadership in the Southern Baptist version of moral. It's going to be hard work. It's going to take, it's, it won't be a smooth transition, but it'll be a just one. It's about owning the deceit, the deception, and the misdeeds of the past. That's why it's at the center of the reading, the Seven of Swords. They need to be held accountable for the crimes that they have committed. For entertainment purposes only, everybody's innocent until proven guilty, but we all know that crimes are being committed. This is not shocking. This is why countries are putting out travel advisories. Don't go to the US, you know? This is why, immigrants are given, or people with visas and green cards are walking around with a list of their rights so that they know what their rights are, because their rights are being violated. And if you don't know what your rights are, then you're not maybe sure that they're being violated. So that's what it's about. It'll be a new freedom for the people of the country and of the world. It's almost like it takes a lot of the pressure out. It's like the balloon starts to deflate, and we're not at that like point of like almost bursting from the inside. It's like the world community is able to like breathe again and say, okay, the United States is um, maybe not completely trustworthy yet, because I think that takes a while to earn back, but at least they're putting forward an effort, and it appears that they're not going to allow crazy to rule again. It's the Seven of Cups. The current administration, they're just delusional, thinking that they're going to get away with this. I've never fundamentally understood why, especially the younger people in the administration, why they think this is going to be okay for them in the future. It's baffled, just it's befuddling. It'll be a nurturing step for the world, the Queen of Pentacles. It'll be an affirmation that we all value human life in the same way. And it'll be surprising. It's just a surprising new beginning that when we look back at this time period, we'll just be like, I can't believe that happened. But it did, and we're currently living through it. But I think it's important to know that it's not going to be this way forever. It's a way to move forward from the deceit and to start anew. So the Six of Swords, the Seven of Swords, and the Ace of Cups. It's a way to move forward from the deceit and start anew by allowing the International Criminal Court to prosecute people. The current people doing the crimes, they're illusioned and delusioned that their deceit is going to go unpunished, but that's partly because they can't see this new reality. They're just not able to picture themselves as part of a global community, because they can barely picture themselves outside of their own race, right? So they can't picture themselves outside of the global community, or outside of the United States, I should say. They don't picture themselves as part of the global community. Justice is going to prevail. This is going to bring forward kind of this nurturing um, kind of healing with the Queen of Pentacles, especially around the things that we value, which will be freedom and opportunity with the Eight of Pentacles. So it's going to be good. The next several years are going to be hard, in the sense things get better than they are now, but they're still going to be hard until the Democrats take over. It's going to be a wish fulfilled for the world. It's going to be about families with the Nine of Cups and the Ten of Cups. To be families, reunions, celebrations. Those are the things we value. And it's going to bring about a new type of leadership, one that's passionate, caring, and just, and we're going to be constantly thinking about the Ten of Pentacles, which is what do we value and what are we leaving? What is the inheritance that we give the next generation? So I think this is what's going to happen. Okay, so does this mean that, let's see here, will the UN vote to call Gaza a genocide? This is what I've seen, and the only way that happens is if countries with veto powers give them up, or if they're no longer part of the UN. The US, of course, being the biggest one that vetoes this, I don't think Russia would have a problem going along with this. Does the UN vote to call what's going on in Gaza a genocide? Yes, they do, but not only just what's going on in Gaza, other places too. Things that happened hundreds of years ago will be classified as genocides too, I think, by the UN. Um, yeah, because it's about sending a very clear message for the next generation with the Six of Cups. And even though it's going to be emotional to talk about these things, it's what's right with the Knight of Cups. And here's Temperance. Temperance and the Nine of Wands. These are the two big cards for the next several months. It's about making a world where things are called what they are. No excuses. We call a lie. We call genocide genocide. That's the way it is. It's a way to move forward. It's a healing thing to do. It's going to be painful for some people, for sure. But ultimately, it's about freedom and putting up guardrails. See, Nine of Wands, Temperance. Um, it's about putting up a message that the UN is going to stop bowing down to a single country. The US is going to stop participating in the UN in this way of we control the UN. It's going to make some people, upset. It's going to expose a lot of information that people maybe weren't aware of because it's going to really occupy the news cycle. We get the Eight of Pentacles again. It's a way of, you know, valuing what is the truth. It is going to be controversial and it is not going to be without argument, not inside the UN, but amongst the people that are perhaps associated with these genocides, because it's about the truth. It's about setting a standard, like the church, the pope, the court. Like there's just a universal standard of what is acceptable and not acceptable. It's to get rid of this like icky, apathetic feeling and to bring about a more um, just world. So yeah, Gaza will be classified as a genocide. And as a result, I think the International Criminal Court arrests certain Israeli officials that are currently in the government that are behind a lot of these um, approving these military actions, which are just cruel. So, um, you know, I think the majority of Israeli people do not support these things, but it's just like the majority of, I think, US citizens or people inside the United States even don't support what the felon is doing. So we have to change the structure to where these things can be held accounted. And this is, I think, the way that it's done. This is what I've seen. This does not happen until after there's a president from the Democratic side in 2029. And then it probably takes a little bit of time for that to happen. So, we're several years away from this happening, but I think it's good to just know that things work out in the end. They really do. Elections are not going to be canceled. I don't know why people are scaring people with that. It's not going to happen. The Republicans are already spending an enormous amount of money on the midterm elections. It makes no sense. So anyhow, thank you for watching, and I'll be back with another